It's not, like a lost Christmas letter to Santa. This is my mom.
Today on Investigate TV Plus, the ashes of the dead lost in the mail. I'm Tisha Powell.
And I'm Lee Zurich. We discover hundreds of cremated human remains sitting in a secret warehouse and get answers from the U.S. Postal Service.
Plus, a family tree takes on a new meaning.
We call this Joe's tree. The grandkids call it Papa Joe's tree.
Why a couple decided to grow a legacy in an historic cemetery.
And
breathe in all of the light.
The program giving young cancer patients the power to take command over the illness that's controlled their life.
In-depth stories that inform and inspire. You're watching Investigate TV Plus. The death of a loved one is painful, but what if after that death you had to go through losing them again?
Every year, tens of thousands of cremated remains, also known as cremains, are shipped by the U.S. Postal Service. The USPS offers the only legal way to ship cremated remains and provides special labels and packaging for the shipment. But since 2015, hundreds of packages containing cremains failed to make it to their final destination.
Reporter Kristen Crowley tracked down people across the country whose loved ones' ashes were lost and sat down with a U.S. senator to see what the government is doing to help.
She came into my life when I was 2 years old.
On paper, Amy Madru was Sarah Jelinik's stepmom. But to Sarah,
she was always, an amazing rock for that. And so, she's always my mom.
They were so close.
Here she is.
Amy even moved in with Sarah just a few years ago in her Spokane, Washington home.
She was so thoughtful and just great.
And she meant a lot to you.
She meant everything to me.
That's what made Amy's death from COPD in November 2021 so difficult.
It was really hard. It's been really hard. It's just like I lost my mom. I lost my best friend.
That loss was about to become so much harder than Sarah could even imagine. In December 2021, Sarah sent a portion of Amy's ashes through the U.S. Postal Service to be turned into a rock, a symbol of what Amy had been for her whole life. But Amy's cremains never made it to their destination.
It's not, like a lost Christmas letter to Santa. This is my mom, who already felt, like kind of disappointed with some of the way things turned out, and
This shouldn't be the end for her.
No, absolutely not. It's been over a year now, 2 years. It's time to get her back, get her home.
Halfway across the country, Sarah had no idea she wasn't alone.
It's hard to comprehend. It's been so hard on our family.
Charlotte Dillon died unexpectedly on a visit to Oklahoma in early 2020. Her granddaughter, Michaela Eckler, says her ashes never arrived back home in South Carolina. And Michaela says USPS hasn't done anything about it.
The level of how much they don't care, it's just gut-wrenching. They do not care.
The Postal Service is the only carrier allowed to ship cremains in the USA, a responsibility Sarah and Michaela never questioned. But that was before they knew about an audit of how USPS handles cremains. That audit, released in July of 2023, found USPS was in custody of 452 undelivered cremains at its mail recovery center in Atlanta. It's important to note that number includes human and animal cremains, though both get the same label. Some had been there since 2015. In the audit, the Office of the Inspector General determined, quote, the Postal Service was not always in compliance with cremated remains acceptance procedures. Specifically, cremated remains packages were not always properly labeled.
And when did you find out about this audit?
When you called me.
So you had no idea they'd even done this, and this was almost a year ago.
I had no idea. Zero. None. No idea.
The reason that audit happened in the first place was because of this man.
I think at one point I told them it's not like they lost a rug that I ordered, they lost my mom.
Daniel Smith's mother's cremains were also lost in the mail back in 2022. The Indiana native contacted U.S. Senator Mike Braun, who demanded the audit.
When you're talking about the sanctity of remains, and to see that, we jumped into action and tried to get to the bottom of it.
The Inspector General gave recommendations on what to do to prevent future loss of cremains, but didn't address what to do with the 452 cremains deemed undeliverable. It turns out they're still there, months after being discovered.
The Inspector General's office declined our request for an on-camera interview, but the United States Postal Service said it would answer our questions via email. It would not disclose the address of the mail recovery center, citing security concerns. It also said Michaela, Daniel, Sarah, or any other civilian cannot come inside to see if their loved one's cremains are there. So we asked, what efforts are being made to reunite these people with those lost packages? The USPS responded, the cremated remains packages are stored at the MRC indefinitely.
Senator Braun had no idea about this issue until we told him. He says it's unacceptable and vowed to look into it.
This is invaluable because it casts a broader light on things, and that means that I'm just hoping when we do get to the bottom of it that there's some satisfaction that they've been found.
Will you personally be reaching out to the Inspector General?
Oh yeah, well I'll get involved if there's no motion in terms of the staff that I've got that does an amazing job. Generally when a Senate office gets involved at this level, something starts to crack, it starts to change.
The timeline of that progress, Braun says, is up in the air.
I love that one.
For Sarah, while she's already waited far too long, she's hopeful a reunion is in her future.
I still do have faith, in part because you're here, so in huge part because of that. So, I have a good gut feeling that it'll work out, but it is just insulting.
Daniel hired a lawyer who told him the Postal Service would only be liable for the insurance value of the package, about $100.
When asked about missing cremains, the Postal Service told us that in a roughly 2-year period, it had more than 2,100 service requests for cremated remains packages. You can read the Postal Service's full response on our website, InvestigateTV.com. Just search Missing Remains.
Still to come, many first-time homebuyers have discovered a gray area in the real estate market. We explore how senior citizens wanting to age in place contribute to a lack of inventory.
But first, families looking for a living legacy are finding an alternative to a traditional burial.
I just think that it makes sense for both of us to be red maple trees.
We explore why some people are making this decision and how it could benefit future generations.
You can watch Investigate TV Plus anytime online. Just subscribe to our YouTube channel at Investigate TV. You can catch stories and full episodes.
"76 million people in the United States are considered baby boomers, those born between the end of World War II and 1964.
Baby boomers were among the first to eat TV dinners, tune in to I Love Lucy, and dial a payphone.
The baby boomer generation is now hitting their golden years and facing the reality of their own mortality.
And we know it's a tough topic to discuss, but it's an important conversation to tackle with your family because many boomers are reimagining what happens after their death.
Baby boomers are expected to reach the age of life expectancy between now and 2042. If all of them were buried traditionally, researchers found it would require roughly 130 square miles of grave spots, an area about the size of Las Vegas. That's why some cemeteries are shifting to non-traditional burial methods, including cremation, green burials, and tree burials.
For the family of Joe Coleman, a love of nature, the outdoors, and vibrant fall colors provided the seeds for a living tribute. In Roanoke, Virginia, among the gray headstones dotting the century-old cemetery's green landscape.
This is a red maple tree, and it was chosen by me when my husband passed in March of 2020.
A living and growing tribute to the life of Joe Coleman.
When this tree was planted, I instantly wanted a destination outdoors that I could go to and talk to Joe.
Kitty Coleman was married to her husband Joe for 50 years.
I guess when people would ask me about Joe, I would always say that the smartest thing I ever did in my life was marry Joe Coleman. And people understood when they knew him.
His friends and coworkers knew Joe as a longtime public school teacher and administrator who always had part of his heart in the classroom. A larger part of his heart was with his wife, who he'd often spend time with outdoors on the local trails.
Joe and I would literally spend many days hiking outdoors.
That love for the outdoors is just one of the reasons why his wife says Joe decided to be a tree. It's a choice he began considering years before his death, when he was first diagnosed with cancer.
We were lucky to have had a little bit of time to talk about these very tough conversations, make some challenging decisions, and we both decided that this was the option for us. I would get emotional during those tough conversations.
But a majority of Americans haven't had that tough conversation. According to the U.S. National Funeral Directors Association, just 21% of people had discussed their funeral plans with family, even though 2/3 acknowledged the importance of doing so.
If you think about it for just a little bit today and make a commitment, you won't ever have to think about it again.
Don Wilson is the president of Evergreen Memorial Trust.
There's been a lot of people that say that's a cool idea.
Don says they were fielding calls from people who were looking for another option from the traditional burial or cremation. He says they became aware of a biodegradable urn, which helped plant the seeds for the Be a Tree program.
We've probably got 40 trees in the program, and that many more that have been pre-arranged and pre-planned.
The program at Evergreen involves a biodegradable urn buried beneath a tree. Many of the trees tell part of the person's life story or show some aspect of their personality.
I forget the family's name, but Dad was a big man, strong man, and they wanted an oak tree for Dad because that fit him perfectly.
And these are the 3 grandchildren.
In the meantime, Kitty continues to tend and care for Joe's red maple and knows that someday she will once again be by his side.
I purchased the space adjacent to him because I will definitely be a tree as well.
And Kitty hopes one day a family tradition will take root between their trees.
I foresee generations of Colemans gathering around my husband's tree and my tree in years to come.
Families looking to bury their loved ones can expect to pay an average of $7,000 to $10,000 for a traditional burial, which includes the casket, burial, and installation of a headstone. Officials with the cemetery we spoke to say a tree burial there cost around $5,000, but that does not include the cost of cremation or any other expenses related to the funeral home.
Still to come, inspiring health and healing.
I was very confused. I had no idea what was going on.
A rabbi teaches children to overcome their illness one breath at a time. But first, new home buyers face limited inventory as more older adults decide to age in place. The reason some empty nesters refuse to fly the coop and how it contributes to the housing crunch.
Homeownership is something many people strive to achieve, but for millennials, the American dream is increasingly becoming more difficult to reach.
That's because economists say home ownership has become a battle of generations. An April 2024 report found millennials surpassed baby boomers as the largest generation of home buyers, totaling 38%. But many baby boomer empty nesters refuse to downsize.
Reporter Jason Barry explores how older Americans are making the housing market a bust for young home buyers.
You know, it was an immediate decision to buy this house.
Don Johnson has lived in this picturesque, carefree home with his wife Evelyn for 27 years, and they have no plans on moving anytime soon.
There's really no financial incentive to leave. You know, I don't see us ever leaving until it comes to the point where, you know, it becomes a necessity.
The 73-year-old retiree is among a growing number of older homeowners who've decided they like living in their larger homes and have no interest in downsizing, which is having a trickle-down effect on the Valley's housing market.
Prices, again, are pushing up more.
Scottsdale realtor Jeff Seebach says in years past, baby boomers and empty nesters would frequently sell their homes to buy something smaller and more manageable, then put the extra equity in the bank for retirement. That's just not happening right now.
Real estate is a good inflation hedge. And because inflation has driven up prices, it's hard to sell something that's appreciating so fast. Whenever I go to a listing and they've owned a home for 12 years or 15 years or 20 years, they get comfortable there.
Seebach tells us a lot of older homeowners own their homes outright or have low interest rates, so it doesn't make financial sense to buy a new expensive home at a higher rate. The lack of family-sized homes going on the market like Johnson's has limited the options for younger Gen Z or millennial buyers.
We're extremely happy here, and there's just really no reason for us to downsize or look for anything else.
Real estate experts tell me even if interest rates drop below 6% this year, it may not be enough to convince empty nesters to sell their house. Mortgage data firm ICE Mortgage Technology says more than 90% of current homeowners with mortgages have rates that are already less than 6%, and most boomers own their homes outright, so the rate lock-in doesn't even apply to them. In Phoenix, I'm Jason Barry.
A silver tsunami, which a 2019 Zillow report defines as baby boomers either downsizing or passing away, could have an impact on the housing market over the next several years. The report shows more than 20 million homes could flood the market by 2037, when the U.S. Census predicts boomers will start passing away at greater numbers. The biggest boosts are expected in retirement hubs such as Tampa, Miami, Orlando, and Tucson, Arizona.
Up next,
for some of them, it's that their eyes light up and they get really excited, and others are going, okay, what's this all about?
the program inspiring seriously ill children to overcome pain with power, peace, and purpose. When a child is sick, all a parent wants to do is make them feel better. But for the parent of a child with a serious illness, they would do anything to make their pain go away.
Yeah, Rabbi Elimelech Goldberg knows this feeling firsthand. Rabbi G, as he's fondly known, was inspired to start Kids Kicking Cancer in 1999 after the death of his child from the disease. Since then, he's traveled the globe helping seriously ill children use meditation and breathing exercises to overcome their fear and pain.
We go to a children's hospital in Savannah, Georgia, as Rabbi G helps children find power, peace, and purpose.
I think anytime we can be the first with something, particularly in a program like this, is very exciting.
Come in.
We come in to be able to help some of the young people that are in the hospital that are experiencing pain, discomfort, and either recuperating or getting ready to go in for some type of treatment. Have you ever seen martial arts before? For some of them, it's that their eyes light up and they get really excited, and others are going, okay, what's this all about? Toby, are you ready for this?
I was very confused. I had no idea what was going on.
Well, the starting point is always to be able to teach them the breathing techniques, which are very interesting, is where we're going to be breathing in the light And then there's certain things that we do, and then breathing out the darkness. And some of that, what that alone will do, it'll help to change some of the way your brain is working. And so you're able to kind of trick it into realizing that you have control of the pain, and empowering the child or the young person to be able to have control over something that's controlled their life really will help them to be able to move forward in their treatment.
The key is the 3 words that the children use: power, peace, purpose. That no matter what we face in our lives, we can bring in this extraordinary light, this energy, and push out pain, fear, and anger.
Well, it definitely gives me like a peace of mind and about things that are in the future.
Well, that was relaxing.
It really gets the kids up and moving and gets them interactive, and really ends up being a healing modality to really accentuate getting them out of the hospital and home. And these are things that they're going to be able to continue to use while they're at home and continuing on out in the community.
You breathe in all of the light.
And that's the secret source of the Hero Circle. Every child becomes a teacher. Not despite their challenges, but sometimes because of their challenges. When they learn that they have the ability to breathe in this light and to push out the darkness, they can inspire the planet.
Very good, Sophia.
So I get strength and inspiration. And I have been privileged to learn so much wisdom from these beautiful children.
Power, peace, purpose.
You know, and these kids are learning lessons that they could use for the rest of their lives at a young age.
And I think just watching that story, I think lessons for anyone watching that that they can take home themselves as well, too.
Mindfulness.
It is, yes.
And that's it for us on Investigate TV Plus. I'm Tisha Powell.
And I'm Lee Zurich. Thanks for watching. On the next Investigate TV Plus, a shortage of vital drugs inspires a mother to take matters into her own hands.
I thought, I want to be the change I want to see in the world.
And we take an in-depth look at how it's helping families across the country.